In the weeks before harvest, Andrew Opatz and I walked the vineyards daily. We inspected the vines, tasted the grapes, and took samples back to the lab for analysis to help us decide when the grapes would be ready to pick.
And so we have these numbers we get to look at, we get to project forward, and start making some decisions.
Brix is a measurement of sugar. It's an old term in what I would say an aqueous solution, meaning no alcohol, just sugar and water, which is in a grape, is just percent sugar. The thing that was really surprising today is that the Cabernet is ahead of the Chenin Blanc. Normally the Chenin Blanc would be 2 weeks, 3 weeks ahead of the Cabernet. You know, we have to go back to 1998, 2010 to see another vintage that's this cool.
The rate of ripening hasn't changed, it's a later date. In fact, we kind of desire that slow, steady, mild heat. It preserves color, it slows ripening, and so it's a slow race to the finish, which I think we prefer.
I have a feeling about mid-October, it's going to be game on.
Mid to end of October, it's going to be go time.
Yeah.
Chenin was a late harvest this year. I would say 5 weeks later than last year. It was the first pickup here of the season, which is always exciting. Everybody's in great spirits to get going because you've got nice, big, juicy clusters. You know, we brought in 20 tons, which is an exciting first night.
But our entire Chenin block is only 3 acres, so we were able to pick the entire year's production in one night.
As most of you know, this is one of our more celebrated days, which is the beginning of harvest, which is celebrated by Mom and Enrique hugging, because for the last 55 years, they have been best friends, and once again, he was leading the charge all night long as they're picking grapes. Enjoy, have a great harvest, everybody be safe. Let's keep some sense of humor. Have a great, great harvest. Bye-bye.
Hip, hip, hooray.
Hip, hip, hooray. Go ahead.
Please. Hip.
We are in the middle of October. We have just started getting our reds into the winery, and for the next 2-3 weeks, it's going to be every day. With a compressed year like this, efficiency is what it's all about. But you know, we've got a very experienced crew out here that's been doing this for many years.
Tengo un poquito más de 13 años trabajando aquí en Chappellet. Yo pienso que me tomó unos 2 años, creo, 2 temporadas. La primera sí es difícil. Tenemos que tener un poquito de precaución porque los cuchillos que usamos están demasiado filosos. Eso te digo, también es por la experiencia de los años, porque de recién las primeras temporadas sale uno con los dedos muy cortados.
There's a lot of reasons we pick at night. It's good for the crew, cooler for the fruit that gets into the winery. You know, we've been working hard all year to bring a quality product into the winery, and this is the time where we get to make it all happen. So it's an exciting time of year.
It all starts in the vineyard. They're hours out of the field. How do we take those berries from the field and preserve all of those efforts that our vineyard team have put in for an entire year? As soon as they get here, they're offloaded, weighed, and then they travel through our destemmer.
So this is the first new machine we bought this year. They call it the Rotovibe. Most of the machines are made by Armbruster, the German company that has a very high reputation, and that works faster than the old one. So the berries then fall out of the destemmer. They're fairly low to the ground, so we have to move them back up. Then it falls on a shake table. That is a prototype. This is a double wide that sort of spreads the berries to one single layer of the width of 6 feet. And they fall on a very fast belt that accelerates the berries, so it separates them. Because the distance is how the computer can tell the difference. There are 8 cameras, and then the objects are analyzed. Good ones are let go, just a fall into a pump on the other side, and the objects that are not desirable are being intercepted by high air pressure jets that just give them a little kick in the other direction.
So that you're left with this blueberry Cabernet caviar that enters the tank.
Fermentations are done in stainless steel tanks. And they're both heated and cooled, so it's a kind of a perfect environment for fermentation. They are coming in cold, but if they need any chilling, we'll chill them down a little bit more and let them soak for about 2 days. We do what's called a pump over, where we take the juice from the bottom of the tank and we pump it up over the top over an irrigation device or a sprinkler. Once we're sure everything's perfect, we add yeast and get the fermentation started. It takes about maybe 24 hours. Once that CO2 is given off, it lifts all those skins up to the top. And so we have a cap that's maybe the top 25%. And then the juice is down below. There's about a 10-day window where we have to make all these decisions, but we just have to assess each vintage and decide what is the best way to conduct that fermentation.
We track the conversion of sugar to alcohol with hydrometers, and we drop it into a vertical container where the hydrometer finds its buoyancy depending on the level of sugar. And then that tells us how much sugar is still left in the fermentation.
You know, the most interesting and kind of the artistic part of it is we'll pull a sample from the tank and we'll have maybe 30 of them at a time. We'll centrifuge them and we go through and we taste each tank by just tasting this little tube. It's almost 2 hours every day. And at all the various stages of the fermentation, we want every tank to be perfect.
That's when we decide that it's time to drain the wine off of the skins. And that's called free run.
It's the wine that just comes out of the tank through gravity. And then what you're left with is a cap. And in the cap is still a lot of wine and some actually very good wine. So somebody gets to dig it out.
The grapes then go into our bladder presses, where we have a long cylinder bladder that inflates and squeezes the grapes against the interior wall of the press. And sometimes that can make really great wine. Press wine can either be overly tannic or it's just the right amount. When it's just the right amount, we'll take that and put it back in with the freer one.
The first lots that came in maybe 3 weeks ago are now going to barrels. What really softens these wines will be a second fermentation, malolactic fermentation, and that's a bacterial fermentation that changes the malic acid to lactic acid and rounds out the mouthfeel. It's like a 2-year process. The French call it élevage, which is to, bring the wine up and almost educate the wine. The barrel shay was built in 2012. After the wines are fermented and they're put in barrels, they need it to be a little bit warm for the bacteria. We have rooms that we can heat for that. We're aging the wines at 53 degrees. Bacteria, yeast, any spoilage organism does not really do well at 53 degrees. So we let the cold be the preservative, and it preserves the color, the tannin, the fruit, like this nectar in the wine. For some wines, we use 100% new wood every year, new barrels for the Pritchard Hill Cabernet. That's the only wine that gets 100% new, but we love the spice components that come from the barrels. We're very specific about where our barrels come from, what forests, how they're made, how long the wood is aged, how they're toasted. So all that is very specific to the style of our wine. So we're very close to the end. This has been a very high quality vintage. I think you'll hear a lot about this vintage in the future.
2023 was a condensed harvest here at Chappellet. We processed more tons in a shorter interval than we've ever done before. Without the help of our interns rising to that occasion, we could have not got this done. And so to them, I want to say cheers and thank you to a great vintage. 2023 is one for the books.